following true story is known as one of the most mysterious fatal elephant attacks on a human in recorded history. In the spring of 2022, Raipal village resident Maya Murmu was not only killed by an elephant in a violent encounter, but it's the horror that took place during her funeral that left many questioning the motives behind this unprecedented attack. Nestled within the vast expanse of Odisha lies the Mayurbhanj district, a region known for its rich cultural tapestry and deep-rooted traditions. And it's here in the heart of Rasa Gobindpur that Raipal village lies. A village that's not merely defined by its geographical coordinates, but by its rich history as well as the collective spirit of its people. It was amidst the backdrop of Raipal that this fateful incident would unfold, forever changing the narrative of not just the village, but its perception of one of India's most revered animals, the elephant. Maya Murmu, at 70 years of age, was a figure of resilience and wisdom in Raipal village. Throughout her entire life, she had witnessed the changing seasons, the ebbs and flows of village life, as well as the evolving relationship between her community and the surrounding forest. Her hands, visibly weathered through the decades of time and laborious work, told stories of countless sunrises and sunsets, of traditions upheld, and of a life deeply intertwined with the rhythms of nature. The forest or jungle that bordered Raipal was more than just a vast expanse of green. It was in fact the keeper of stories passed down through generations. Tales of spirits, ancient guardians, and of course its mesmerizing wildlife echoed in the whispers of the leaves and the songs of the birds. And for these villagers, the jungle was both a provider and a protector, and its mysteries and inhabitants were not just respected, but even worshipped. On that spring morning, Maya set out on a familiar path towards the waterhole, located just outside the boundaries of the Dalma Wildlife Sanctuary. This waterhole, a lifeline for the village, was a place where the paths of man and nature often intersected, with both villagers and wildlife frequenting its banks. Elephants and villagers had crossed paths many times before, typically resulting in peaceful exchanges or in other cases mutual avoidance. But Maya's encounter, of course, would be much different. A male elephant, its massive form dwarfing the tallest trees around, would abruptly step into the clearing, its skin bearing the marks of battles fought and won, and its eyes holding decades of wisdom. Towering at a height that exceeded 10 feet, its tusks, curved and sharp, would catch the glint of the morning sun, signaling its status as a dominant force of the Indian jungle. Panic would then set in as Maya tried to flee from the oncoming danger, but the dense underbrush and uneven terrain made her escape even more challenging, and in just a few moments, the elephant with its powerful strides and surprising agility for its size closed the distance. Maya would at this point, in a desperate bid to save her own life, try to seek refuge among the trees and foliage. But the elephant's relentless assault would prove her efforts futile, and after a few seemingly long but in actuality brief moments, a helpless Maya would then find herself cornered by the world's largest living land mammal, who would then proceed to brutally trample her to death. This particular jungle is home to a variety of the world's most awe-inspiring creatures, from herbivores like the sambar deer to big cats like tigers and leopards. It is also of course home to the majestic elephant, some of which bore scars inflicted by humans, not just on their bodies, but deep within their psyche. Elephants, with their immense size and strength, have not only been revered globally as symbols of power and wisdom, but they've also played pivotal roles in human history. In ancient times, these gentle giants were trained for warfare, serving as formidable weapons on the battlefield. The Carthaginian general Hannibal is perhaps the most famous figure to have utilized war elephants, leading his troops on the backs of them across the Alps to attack the Roman Republic. These elephants, often adorned with armor and carrying towers filled with archers, would charge into enemy lines, causing chaos and panic. The animosity between Rome and Carthage had already led to one major conflict, known as the First Punic War, which ended in a Carthaginian defeat. Hamilcar Barca had played a significant role in that war, and it was under his tutelage that Hannibal developed a deep-seated animosity towards Rome. Thus, his use of war elephants is most famously associated with the Second Punic War, which began in 218 BC. This was the year that Hannibal decided to lead his army, which included a contingent of war elephants, on an overland route from Spain through the treacherous terrain of the Alps and into the Italian peninsula, a journey which was fraught with challenges. The rugged mountain passes, unpredictable weather, and hostile native tribes made the expedition perilous, and the elephants, not so native to such cold and harsh conditions, would thus suffer, but would still play a huge psychological role, instilling fear and awe in both allies and enemies. Upon descending from the Alps, the sight of the elephants, which were in fact unfamiliar to many in Italy, would provide a significant morale boost to Hannibal's troops. Not to mention war elephants were a sight to behold on the battlefield. They were adorned with thick armor made from metal or leather, which were designed to fit the elephant's massive frame, providing a balance between protection and mobility. And atop these elephants, large wooden towers known as howdahs were mounted. These towers were often filled with archers and soldiers armed with projectiles, and the height advantage offered by these towers allowed archers to rain down arrows upon the enemy from a higher vantage point, making them supremely effective against infantry and cavalry units. But the relationship between humans and elephants has even darker chapters if one were to look further in history. In South and Southeast Asia, elephants were used for torture and as instruments of capital punishment. Execution by elephant was a method of public execution in which trained elephants would crush, dismember, or torture captives in front of large crowds. These executions were not only a method of administering justice, but also served as a demonstration of the ruler's absolute power and the grim fate that awaited those that opposed them. During these tortures, trained elephants would be commanded by their mahouts, or elephant trainers, to administer a variety of brutal punishments. Some elephants were trained to crush the condemned underfoot, using their massive weight to deliver a swift end, whereas other elephants were instructed to slowly dismember, torture, and prolong the final moments of a person in a gruesome public display. And the method chosen, of course, often depended on the nature of the crime. These public executions were held in open areas, often in the hearts of villages or busy districts, ensuring a large gathering. But over time, as societies evolved and views on capital punishment changed, the practice of execution by elephant became much less common and was eventually outlawed. Now, the reason I mention this history is because this likely has a connection with Maya's story, because elephants, who once again are known for their intricate social structures, deep emotional connections, and not to mention strong ability to remember, can be profoundly affected by such traumatic experiences. In fact, modern studies have shown that elephants who have lived through traumas such as culling can display disrupted social behavior or aggressiveness towards humans for decades after incidents occur, which means that these majestic creatures, with memories that can last a lifetime, sometimes carry the weight of their pasts, making their interactions with humans all the more unpredictable, especially in the wild. This is why, once they delved deeper into the attack on Maya, many experts made suggestions that this was perhaps not just any elephant, but one that may have been carrying the weight of its own traumatic past. Maya's lifeless body bearing grievous injuries would later be discovered by nearby locals, and the news of Maya's death would spread quickly, plunging the entire village into mourning. One would think that at this point, an occurrence as rare and tragic as this one was enough for the villagers of Raipal to deal with for one day. But as briefly pointed out in the beginning of this video, there was a mysterious and not to mention unprecedented aspect to this story that followed Maya's untimely demise. As the funeral rites commenced, the atmosphere was thick with grief, but the somber mood was soon interrupted by the distant sound of rustling leaves and heavy footsteps. The very same elephant that had taken Maya's life earlier that day was seen approaching the funeral ground. The mourners, consisting of family and villagers, paralyzed by a mix of fear and disbelief, watched as the massive creature made its way towards Maya's body. In a move that defied all logic and understanding, the elephant would then suddenly charge directly at Maya's body, knocking it off the funeral pyre and trampling it once more. The sheer audacity and inexplicability of the act sent the villagers into a state of panic. Many fled the scene, while others watched from a distance, too stunned to move. The elephant lingered for a few moments, surveying the scene with an air of dominance, before slowly retreating back into the jungle. The funeral ground was meanwhile left in disarray, with the villagers still in utter shock and disbelief, trying to process the double tragedy that had befallen them in the span of just 24 hours. The act of the elephant returning to its victim, especially during such a sacred ceremony, was something the villagers had never witnessed or even heard of before. Word of the incident would rapidly spread, and this time it was not just within Raipal, but due to the shocking and not to mention mysterious nature of it, it also spread to neighboring villages and beyond. The story of Maya and the elephant's inexplicable behavior became the subject of hushed conversations, late-night discussions, and debates among the community elders. Many sought answers from local wildlife experts, hoping to shed light on the elephant's actions, but definitive explanations would remain elusive, though of course leading theories once again seem to suggest a possible link between this particular elephant having had negative interactions with humans at some point in its life. As days turned to weeks, the village would slowly begin to heal, but the scars of that fateful day remained. Vigils were held in memory of Maya, and the villagers would go on to take measures to prevent future encounters, especially near the waterhole where Maya was attacked. If this episode piqued your interest, then our previous episode about a recent grizzly bear attack that saw the life of a Canadian couple and their dog get taken in brutal fashion is likely to do the same. You can find it on the end screen of this video.